Well, a lot of people don't even align a revolutionary with the family unit being the base unit of a full society. First of all, but then on the other hand, a lot of people who claim to be revolutionaries don't even do that. I'm talking about even black revolutionaries. I'm talking about men who have children everywhere and women who have children everywhere, like just haven't held the family unit together. And then talking about their revolutionaries. So on both sides of it, you have people who have neglected the family.
Some of my peoples one time. What up?
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening live. You're here with us. If you're alive, you're with us.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
Yeah, we're alive. We're not live. This is Across the Intersection podcast. This is AJ. I'm here with Avery and Eve.
Hey,
Well,
guys.
if you have eternal life, then
I guess you are alive. If you're hearing this from the grave, shout out to the grave. You can sponsor me anytime.
Sheol.
Oh, Sheol.
Yeah, referred to as hell, Hades,
Yeah.
Sheol.
We started off biblically today, y'all.
Yeah.
So we are back in the business. You can listen to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and SoundCloud. If you are on iTunes, please go hit us up with all 5 of those stars.
Man, that's like kind of rigging the system a little bit, huh?
Yeah,
should
bro.
Say, awarded with the stars in which you feel.
Oh, you think I want their
appropriate.
opinion? Nah, brother, I want 5. You think I want your opinion? No, we would hope that your opinion is 5 stars. So go ahead. If you don't have 5 stars, go ahead and keep that opinion to yourself. Go ahead, keep that junk to yourself, player. Anyway,
What's up the 5-star rating? Huh?
right. This is Across the Intersection podcast, home of the 5-star
Email me.
iTunes rating.
Just email me. You don't got 5 stars.
You can follow us on social media. Hit us up at Across This on Twitter, and Across This One on the Gram, and Across the Intersection on Facebook. I am at Divinimous on all platforms.
And I'm at E to the V to the.
Oh, that's right. I saw that. You switched it up. I saw that. He's like, do you?
On Twitter.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay.
Do as thou wilt, huh?
Yeah, there it is.
All right, Russell Simmons.
Yes, sir. So we are back in it again. We are.
Alistair Crowley.
What?
Do as thou wilt. Lima.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Russell Simmons.
So
you.
Here we go. Do your truth.
Simmons,
Do
by
your
the
truth.
way.
Do your truth.
Yeah, lowercase t. Yeah.
Lowercase t.
Russell Simmons is an interesting character. At some point, we're going to have to dive into him.
Uncle Russ? Ain't that what they call him?
he's
Uncle
just-
Russ?
He's an interesting guy.
How are you gonna have your truth? Does that make any sense to you?
It
your
makes
truth.
sense to a whole
Relative,
lot of
man.
people.
Relativism, man.
Isn't it truth?
Nope.
Your truth.
Hey, man.
Nope.
Okay.
There is no objective
Your truth, your lies.
So it's all relative. huh?
Everything is relative, including
Okay.
the statement. Yeah.
I see. Everything's relative, including the statement.
Including that
So
statement.
1 + 1 = whatever it is you want it to be, huh? 47.
Right, at that time.
Okay.
Right.
Got it.
If I woke up with a headache, it equals 47.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So we are.
Well, that's your truth.
Yeah, there we
So
are. So welcome to Babble Talk. We are your hosts.
when them right at.
So we are here discussing bat now. Now, welcome back, folks. We are here getting it in. It's we are in the middle of March, so it is Women's History Month, right?
I thought we weren't gonna mention that.
Oh man, ladies,
Of
y'all
course we
heard
have
that?
to mention
Y'all
Women's
heard that
History
here?
Month.
Uh-oh.
Y'all heard that from him, not me.
Uh-oh.
Shout out to ladies.
Yes.
Oh,
Shout
you-
out
Ladies,
to ladies.
really working that 5-star,
yeah,
aren't you?
brother. Ladies, you can sponsor me anytime.
51%
Sponsor us
of the
anytime.
population.
There you go.
51%.
It's more ladies than there are men, and they are usually smarter than us. So, now we just wanted to give a quick shout out to Women's History Month. You know, go out and learn yourself something about important women in history. Go out and support programs that help women out, and generally just stop treating women like crap. How about we do that, fellas? I was listening to a comedian one time. He was telling a joke about a study he had read. And he said, he was like, it was talking about all of the number one killers of men, like, prostate cancer, heart attack, all that kind of stuff. He was like, those things are like crazy. Those are the number one killers of men. He's like, you know what the number one killer of women is? He was like, men. It was a joke. But anyways, I guess it wasn't that funny.
That was probably too soon for something.
too soon.
for some occasion.
So,
It was
but I still
probably
like to
too
say,
soon.
guys, let's treat ladies better. How about we try to do that? How about we try to be a better
And ladies,
representation?
if dudes aren't treating you well, dip. I mean, what can I say?
Well,
You
Dip.
heard it here first.
So I'm not
ladies.
gonna. I'm not gonna.
She all about breaking up happy homes. No, I'm just kidding.
Happy homes, right?
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna pander. I'm like, you gotta treat yourselves better too.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but that's still no excuse for somebody to treat you badly.
Well, yeah, it's
You know?
not. Only
Steve Harvey loves to paint men as reactors and just ooga booga, people, primates, However the woman treats herself. See, that's an invitation for me. It's like, you
That's
have a
why-
mind of your own.
Well, I mean, that's why you should treat yourself better. So,
There's no doubt about that. But
Yeah.
still.
No, treat others better. Treat yourself better. Treat others as the way you'd like to be treated.
Where'd that come from?
I don't know, man. What
You're
you
just
tell me?
making it up.
I'm just making
You
it
need
up
to write that down,
as
man.
I go
That's
along.
You're
good.
coming off
Yeah.
the dome,
Yeah,
You're
you
coming off
need
the
to write
dome.
that
Do unto
down.
others, man. It's King James. Do unto others as thou wast haveth them do unto thou.
Oh, LeBron wrote that? Okay, got it.
Woo! Avery getting better with his segues. So we just gonna go ahead and ride that segue on into the sunset. So if you guys have been under a rock, you would not have heard about this. If you follow the NBA,
It's actually offensive to cave dwellers.
people under rocks. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I apologize.
You gotta be inclusive, bro.
Now, what is it? If if my statement offended you, I am sorry.
Gotta
But
be
if you live
inclusive.
under a
Of
rock,
people that live in bunkers, man.
yeah. But last month at the NBA All-Star game, just before the game, so there was an interview.
After the
Carrie,
game.
well, no, the first, the Carrie Champion.
I'll
So
stop
Carrie
interrupting you
Champion,
then.
Carrie Champion, you know her, black female, one of the anchors of Sports Center, recently departed on ESPN. She was interviewing LeBron and KD in the Uber, as if she drives Uber. We all know that none of the three of them are riding Ubers, but maybe Carrie is. I know KD and LeBron are not. I don't know what Carrie's money is looking like. Carrie could sponsor us anytime, though. So they're in an Uber. She's talking to him about basketball stuff and this, that. And then the conversation turns political. And, of course, we know LeBron James had endorsed Hillary Clinton during the election cycle a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And so we know his stance is on 45. So he says what he says. And then a Fox News anchor by the name of Laura Ingraham, she comes out, of course, she's going to lambaste LeBron because she's not a fan of anybody who bashes 45, which most of those cats on Fox are not. And at the end of her, diatribe about Mr. James, she says, and to quote blankety blank, which I believe it was Scott Baio from the Republican National Convention in 2016. If you quote Scott Baio, by the way, you've fallen down.
Shout out to Charles in charge.
Yeah, Charles not in charge. So she says, but at the end of her little rant about LeBron, she then says, why don't you just shut up and dribble? To quote Mr. Scott, shut up and dribble. So then to that, when LeBron is asked about it at NBA All-Star Weekend, right? He says, oh, LeBron, what you think about this? He said, well, I will not just shut up and dribble. There are too many kids who look up to me, this, that, and the third. And, his whole point was, as, most of the cats are in 2018, as they were in 2017 and 16, we're in a woke-ish society. Woke-ish, there's a new
Emphasis
comedy
on
special.
the ish.
Right,
Yeah,
all of
trademark that.
Well, no, I think Marlon Wayne's
Yeah,
already
somebody
did that.
snatched it.
He got a new
a
thing on
Netflix special. I
called
actually saw it on
Woke-ish.
Netflix. I didn't see it, but I saw it on among
Don't worry,
the,
you're not missing nothing.
Oh, really?
That
It
joint
wasn't
is
even
lame.
all that?
That joint is
Oh,
lame.
really? So he's not good with stand up is not his strong
I don't
suit.
consider them cats funny at all. Anyway, like the Wayans, it's lowbrow comedy, so it's like it's yeah.
Is it slapstick? I guess there's
It's-
nobody
it's not
from
even
the slap, but
It's like trying to do In Living Color humor 25 years after the show. It's kind of like, yo, that joint.
and plus it's a different genre.
yeah. So anyway,
Okay. Okay, thanks for that.
so you're not missing nothing. But anyway, so he, makes those statements. I would not shut up and dribble. Becomes a hashtag, and I think Dwayne Wade jumps on the band. A lot of people jump on the bandwagon. Yo, we're not
Banana
just
boat bandwagon. Got it.
the banana boat posse. They all like we not just gonna shut up and dribble. So every time something has popped up in the last couple of weeks, if you are on social media, if you're listening to these guys talk, oh, see, this is why we're not just gonna shut up and dribble, right? Every time something else pops off, it's like, this is why we're not gonna shut up and dribble. But then, and you guys can thank Mr. Avery over here for this. So there was an article written that Avery shot over to me from the Inquisitor, written by a cat by the name of Robert Jonathan, Mr. Two First Names himself, that says that LeBron's calls for equality and, his chants and whatnot for equality
And the shoes.
can run kind of hollow, can run kind of hypocritical. Because there's, for many of those who might not know, LeBron James has a very lucrative endorsement contract with Nike, the number one shoemaker in the United States and globally as well.
It's the biggest endorsement contract they've ever extended to anyone.
Yeah, it's a lifetime contract worth roughly $1 billion.
Yeah, so as people say, and by lifetime, of course that's air quotes, because as we know, LeBron never not has a no trade clause. So I'm quite sure there's a hatch clause in there that says, if come on,
he could jump ship.
Absolutely, yeah. That lifetime is probably like 9 years, or 15 years or something.
It's got lifetime in air quotes on
exactly.
His contract.
But it's like life in prison is like 20 years. But anyway.
But, just to give you a backdrop. So Nike, I looked these, stats up. Nike controls like 51% of the U.S. shoe market, which is crazy. And I think it's like 35% of the global shoe market Nike owns, which is a humongous market share of any market. Yeah. If you're in any market, in any industry, and you have 51% control of the industry, that is crazy. So,
should be broken up, but anyway.
Well, I guess I'm wondering if it's even considered a monopoly at that point, in which case, of course, we do have legislation surrounding when monopolies need to be broken. But what percentage of the market share makes it a monopoly? I don't know.
Well, I think that Nike, obviously this is smart business, because if you dig into that 51%, 35 of it is Nike. But like 16 or 17 of it is Jordan brand. And for those of you who don't know, Michael Jordan used to be with Nike. Well, he still is, but he now has Jordan brand, which is a subsidiary.
His likeness. He sold his likeness.
The Jumpman logo,
the company. He sold his name. That's what he did.
He sold his name,
Jordan.
So
his likeness, to that, called the Jordan brand. And he gets a royalty. But he doesn't run the company.
He doesn't run Jordan brand?
He doesn't own it, no.
Who owns Jordan brand?
Nike,
Phil Knight?
Nike, Nike.
I thought it was just a subsidiary of Nike.
That's what a subsidiary means.
But I'm saying, but he would still run the Jordan brand.
He does not run the Jordan brand. He runs the Charlotte Hornets and other companies. But he does not run Jordan brand. It's just his likeness. Okay. It's just his name.
So the Jordan brand.
He has influence, obviously, but he doesn't own or run that company.
Wow. I know he didn't own it, but I thought he still ran the day-to-day operations.
No, he doesn't.
But it's a subsidiary of Nike, and it is about another 16 or 17%.
Yeah. So when you combine all of that, then
that's when you get the 51%. Yeah.
It's still overall owned, but anyway, you can continue.
Well, no, I was just throwing that out there as a backdrop now.
Right.
To Mr.
That's how you get to the 51%.
That's how you get the 51%. Mm-hmm. So Mr. Jonathan's article in the Inquisitor says that if LeBron was truly about equality and the things in which he proclaims in terms of all the things he wants to see for progress being made in society, he would not allow his shoes to continue to be made by slave labor overseas, and propped up in the ghetto where folks are killing each other to get his shoes. For those of you who don't know, LeBron shoes are one of the most expensive on the market. $150, $200 a pair of shoes.
More than that.
And sometimes more than that, yeah. If you want to get the exclusive ones, it can be $300-$400 a shoe. Yep. So I guess then, is it hypocritical for LeBron James to, on one hand, say, equality, I'm not down with 45, police brutality, that whole kind of woke mindset, but on the flip side, continue to cash checks from Phil Knight and the boys up in the Northwest, right, that have essentially built their empire on bodies, whether it's slave labor, child labor overseas, or the bodies of little brown boys and girls that have killed themselves to get Jordans at midnight releases.
Midnight releases during the day, phone posits, Jordans, and LeBrons. Yes, here in the United States.
So you are saying it is hypocritical.
So you're saying it is hypocritical.
Well, what I'm saying is that you got a lot of low hanging fruit. Like, you don't have to wait till I can't breathe hashtag to be able to try to talk about the disparity and how the principalities are by principality I mean a dominion run by a prince. The principality of the United States is against people that look like you. Like, you don't have to wait to that. There has been an ongoing conversation that was big in the 90s and even in the 2000s. Not as big, but certainly certainly has been going on about Nike's labor practices. Not just overseas, but it happens here. The materialism that is embedded into the community in which that LeBron James comes from, the weaponized public relations that happens from Nike through their advertising agency of Wieden and Kennedy, which a lot of people who don't know who that is, but they're the ones that create it, and they get with Spike Lee, and they do all of these, it's got to be the shoes commercials and the LeBrons. Remember that when it was like LeBron James family of all these different LeBrons?
Yeah.
Little Penny, I Am Not a Role Model, Charles Barkley, Tiger Woods, Earl Woods, I'm disappointed in you. All those commercials, all that stuff that has Nike slapped on it, and it just makes this community in which LeBron James, it ingratiates that product more and more to them, and they keep spending way more money than they have on something they don't need, they only want. He can speak out against that stuff, and I actually think that would be an easier sell for him than to just be like, I got all these kids looking up to me. Okay, well, that's all very good, and you give away, some shoes, and shout out to him paying for people's college tuition. I think that's great that they don't necessarily have to take on that debt.
Right.
I just think that that's cool. If that's the thing that you know how to make money and then cover people's debts so that they don't have to go to college, then that's great. And now you can speak on that. I can't say nothing about it. But if you're speaking on the president is a bum, well, then why is he a bum? And also it extends to KD. The president,
your favorite player, KD.
I mean, I'm over it. He moved on. I'm over it. LeBron James says, oh, he's a bum. I look up to, and I'm talking about this commercial. When you grow up, you look up to the president. You look like you was looking up to the president, bro. So let me tell you. So you were looking up to Bill Clinton. You were looking up to Ronald Reagan. You were looking up to George Bush.
That old.
No, LeBron said this in the commercial.
Right.
Like, so he's supposed to be a role model. What are you talking about, bro? Like, all those people.
So you think he's just parroting liberal?
Yeah, I mean, propaganda. And not even just liberal. Like, seriously, hashtag. He gets his news from hashtags, like other people who I won't mention, but other celebrities.
LeBron James is a high school graduate. I think that the problem with the article is that motives are being assigned to him. He's a high school graduate. I think he is a smart person, but when you're a high school graduate, you become smart based on the things that you decide to expose yourself to. He has a contract with Nike. Most people wouldn't turn that down. Most people probably wouldn't even do the research to look at the business practices of these sponsors who are trying to court them.
Anytime, Nike. Anytime.
Yeah, like, okay, so before I, take on this such and such amount of money contract, let me look at the business. Does he even have the critical thinking or even the consciousness to go beyond thinking that police brutality is wrong? Anybody can make that conclusion or reach that conclusion. Does he go beyond that and say, let me look at the business practices of a company that's looking to sponsor me, or is he looking at dollar signs? And so I think that the way that this particular article is written is problematic, because it says if he really wants equality, well, yes, he does, because if he didn't have to say anything about inequality in the first place.
Right.
He didn't even have to go there.
He just doesn't know what equality is.
Well, then that's what the article should have said. Let's educate this man, this high school graduate, instead of saying, if he really believes in this. If he didn't believe in it, then he wouldn't even throw on the T-shirt that says "I can't breathe."
Well, so to your point, E. So compare that to, I don't know if you guys remember back in the '90s when they hit up Jordan about something similar. And he was like, well, I'm not saying nothing because Republicans buy Jordan.
Well, that's alleged. Again, I've said this before, that there is no interview of him, no evidence of him actually saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
But anyway, he did not say anything.
Or against it.
So he didn't, it's
so
interesting.
Can his silence be taken as being complicit?
It can be taken as that, but that could be the wrong extrapolation. You could take anything as anything if it triggers you. I think that.
So I can take it. You gonna give me $100 when we finish with this?
Whatever. As long as you give it to me first. So
Right, exactly.
So let's leave Michael Jordan out of this.
Well,
this don't have
only
anything
reason
to do with
I
Michael
bring
Jordan.
up Jordan is if you remember when he started making his donations to all of the black organizations,
Yeah.
quote unquote. He
Yeah.
also donated like $1 million to the police. If you remember.
I don't actually, but continue.
You don't remember, like it's about a year and a half ago. Jordan is like he was like I can no longer remain silent.
Oh, I remember
and so
that.
he
yeah,
started
but
to
I mean,
donate all this money to
okay.
all these inner city organizations. But in that, also donated. It may not have been $1 million, but several hundred thousands of dollars to the Charlotte Police Department.
And he could boost the police. Okay.
But comparing and contrasting that to LeBron James,
Okay.
why is what LeBron is doing wrong in terms of speaking out against equality?
Because he's not doing nothing.
inequality?
He's not doing nothing. Speaking this whole inequality stuff is constantly trying to compare ourselves to the Caucasian, to the white man all the time. The white man. But we fail to recognize that we are under a particular rule right now. We're under a particular empire. Like the Caucasian won. They won. So there's a lot of other things that are unequal that are more closer to this man's front door than a Trump tweet. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Like what? I'm just what like
okay. What? So again, I will reiterate what you just talked about. So the covetousness, the covetousness of Nike sneakers, the covetousness of purchasing these items in which our community cannot truly afford. That's what I'm that's what I'm talking about. I said that look, he could do some kind of combination approach between Stephon Marbury and Dwayne Wade. His best friend is Dwayne Wade. I'm sure it's crossed his mind at some point in time, well, maybe I should own instead of being owned. The statement in which Stephon Marbury has said in response to the quality of his sneakers versus the quality of LeBron sneakers, and LeBron saying something to the effect of,
I want high quality shoes.
Our higher standards.
For those of you who don't remember,
okay.
about 10 years ago, maybe 12, Stephon Marbury had come out with Starberries.
Mm-hmm. It was more than 12 years ago. But
Was it more than 12 years
ago? Oh, come on, yeah.
I'm just throwing out a date, but I remember seeing them about 10, 12 years ago. They might have been out before that, but they were about $20, $15, $20. They were sold at Steve and Barry's.
Yeah, Steve and Barry's, yeah.
I remember the one up in Silver Spring.
Yeah.
They're just like little, at little boutiques around the country. But the point was Stephon Marbury wanted to have inexpensive shoes for inner city use so that they wouldn't, be falling into the traps of
having
killing each
grown
other.
up in Coney Island,
Right. Yeah.
and being in an under-resourced area,
Right.
and knowing that the mentality that's fed to people in under-resourced areas is you need to get your personal value from something. Oh, how about those sneakers?
Yeah.
And so he wanted to at least say, I understand that this is that type of environment. Let me not put my sneakers. Let me not
Right.
put any blood
Yes.
on my hands
Right.
Yes.
by having this insurmountable amount of money that my sneakers were worth per unit.
So rather than LeBron speaking out against police brutality or 45, or anything, you would just say he should just come out there and be like, yo, Nike, drop the price of my shoes to $25 or whatever. I'm just,
I'm saying that he can,
Which would still be a profit based on how much each one of those shoes costs to make.
that definitely. And what I'm saying is, what I'm trying to get at is that he doesn't necessarily have to be with Nike. Like, he can do these things. He chooses not to because he puts money first. And I'm not necessarily saying that he is a bad American or bad businessman for doing such. I'm just saying that he's talking out of both sides of his
But that
neck.
goes back to what I was saying before. How do we know that he has even evolved to the consciousness that's able to look past a number in a contract and say, let me look at the business practices of all of these companies that want to court me, and I'm only going to deal with X, Y. He's a high school graduate. Does he even have
First
that
of all,
consciousness?
I don't think so. So the level of degrees in which that one has doesn't necessarily equate to how intelligent or how wise or that they are. It's completely.
He's shown himself to be
not
intelligent in other areas, though.
But what I'm saying, you keep on bringing up the fact that he's a high school graduate. I'm just saying that I'm responding to the topic at hand. Right, I'm not referencing Michael Jordan. I'm not referencing the fact that the man graduated high school. I understand that helps to understand his background a little bit more. But the man, look, I graduated high school. I don't have $1 billion contract with Nike.
Yes.
So there's a level of
you got to work on that jump shot, man. That's why.
there's a level of advancement in certain areas that he has over me.
Yes.
So, there are things in which that it doesn't, if he speaks on something, just like anybody, it doesn't have to be him, but he's the one in the Uber with these commercials talking about something that, he is not the only person who has jurisdiction to speak on. And in fact, if he's saying something or doing something that I see is clearly, it doesn't take into account all the other factoids about a particular thing, then I have the option to be able to speak about it, particularly when it comes to marketing some sneakers with equality all over.
I agree that he should be challenged. I'm just questioning his motives being questioned.
When did I bring up his motives?
No, I'm specifically talking about the article and the angle
Yeah,
that the article comes from.
in the
It's
article,
like,
they do come at it,
clearly
yeah.
he's not. He clearly
Well,
doesn't really
so-
believe in equality because therefore he would do X, Y, Z.
Oh, well, yeah.
We have no control over his level of consciousness
So
and evolution and that sort of thing. But at least he can be challenged in this area as opposed to saying he's not really into equality.
Well, those are fair points because it says that if he was really in equality, then maybe he would do a wealth transfer and get rid of $750 million of his net worth or his contract or whatever. And
I think that's just foolish.
No, I'm just saying. I'm not in the guy's pockets. All right, I'm not counting his wallet. I'm not counting that. I'm not talking about all that. But what is up for speaking out on or addressing rather is whether or not somebody is trying to distract you, to deny you from actually analyzing something else.
And who would that person be, or what would that entity be in this particular case? Would it be the man of LeBron James, or would it be whoever his handlers are?
It's both.
Or whoever's transferring funds into his wealth
It's both. And what I'm
profile and portfolio.
It's both. And what I'm trying to do, what I would like to do is to allow the listeners to be able to see past the things that are just put in front of them, because of the things in which that especially people who have been so subjugated and our cultures ripped from us. As people of brown skin in this country, it's important for us to be able to read the things in which that are put in front of us, but not just read the things that are in front of us, also be able to interpret the things that are in front of us and stop taking things at just face value.
Agreed.
Be able to read between the lines, try to understand the things that aren't said, be able to ask the question, well, if I'm seeing something so silly that actually doesn't benefit me as a citizen of this country or benefit me spiritually, what is it that this is probably distracting me from?
Excellent.
What is
Do
this
you think
distracting
Laura
me
Ingram's
from?
stuff was trying to distract people? Because I wouldn't put all the onus on LeBron, only because his stuff was a response to somebody else. I mean, the initial Uber thing.
His stuff is a response to everybody else. But what is she? She's an anchor where?
She's at Fox. I mean, she's a talking head at Fox.
Okay,
I mean, yeah.
so she's doing her job. So as a talking head at Fox, what that means is that, she's a propagandist, right? And so she is put in a situation to be able to spin certain things or communicate certain things a certain way to get people to have a particular response, right? Is she a not just a talking head? What kind? She's a journalist or commentator?
Yeah, that's the question. Is she a commentator? Is she a true journalist? I would question that.
I mean, most of the talking heads are not journalists.
Anybody with a good voice can sit at a desk and read the news, which is what she does. She reads the news, and even the commentary may have been fed to her.
Only reason I look at it as, someone telling LeBron James, a high profile African American athlete, to shut up and dribble, for all of the things that I know he probably could be doing, like not having his shoes built in sweatshops and things of that nature, advocating for lower prices and Nike stop fleecing the black community and all of that, which is 100% true. But my only place where I am on board with the way in which he approached it is for someone to speak to him in that manner is code. Right?
Yeah.
It's code. Like,
there's a context to
even
it.
if you don't agree, right? Even if you don't agree with Tom Brady or Derek Jeter, you're not going to tell them to shut up and dribble on national television. But to tell LeBron James to do it on national television, it's code. And so that's where I can understand his response. Now, could he go a little bit further? Yeah, he probably could go a little bit further and do a little bit more, a la Kaepernick. We talk about Kaepernick in pre-pro, where he changed his stance from just kneeling and boycotting the national anthem at the games to saying, you know what, I'm going to go back and invest myself, my time, and my money into these communities.
But it's not just about. I want to be clear before we move on. It's not just about him. Doing more. Everybody could do more. That is not my response. And honestly, I don't even get that from the article. It's not about it's not about doing more. It's about properly answering the issue at hand or having an informed response. So that trying to approach the issue of the disparity between ethnic groups within this country by coming out with black and white shoes that say equality on them, all right, that run for over $200, right, that the air quotes gives away in a raffle. I mean, that's a limited edition, but he not giving away all the shoes. Like, that's just promotion.
And you still had to pay
Nike,
to get in the raffle.
Of all companies. What'd you say?
And you still had to pay to get in the raffle too.
No, I thought it was free.
No, I think
you had to pay.
The thing said $10 to get into the raffle.
I mean, it's just it's asinine. It's like, it's silly. It's childish with Nike and the NBA having these equality T-shirts that you see all these people wearing. It's so in vogue. It's like, it's so silly because Nike Nike, excuse me. I'm conflating Nike and the NBA. How about that?
Yeah.
The NBA could do a lot of things that are built around materialism with the black community, the quote unquote black community. They could do a lot of things. It's association with hip hop, murder rap, all those things. Like, granted they did some things with the dress code, okay, whatever. There are other things that can be done, but specifically speaking about LeBron James, I just feel in this manner, in this issue, I don't think that his response is very
thoughtful.
No, informed is probably. I think he could have made a more
responsible.
Oh, yeah, all of the above.
It's not really anything. It's like putting. It's like putting. I don't know. I'm not going to use that example, but it's just you're just selling sneakers. Oh well, it's what I can do. No, it's not actually all you can do. You actually do something different. In fact, it's kind of silly.
I don't think, and this is where I don't know, because I don't think that it's wrong what he did. I just don't think it's enough. And that's why I think I'll part ways with you. If he wanted to wear the shoes to say equality, I mean, they wear breast cancer stuff. Like, they do that. That's what these guys do.
To quote unquote raise awareness.
Yeah, to raise awareness. So
exactly.
Wearing the
quote
shoes.
Unquote raise awareness.
So, putting on
what
the
does
shoes.
That mean?
I mean, to bring it to people's attention. Like, you would be surprised how many people are ignorant to the dog whistle comment that "shut up and dribble" is. People are ignorant to that stuff.
Yeah,
so
but
bringing it to their attention.
Yeah, but to Avery's insinuation, having a T-shirt or shoes that say equality doesn't bring attention.
Well, no,
to that.
as a first step. That's what I'm saying. Like, if he did that,
so this is a part of a campaign, then that's something else.
Exactly. That's my point. Like, if you did this as the beginning of some other stuff,
it's not.
Oh no, I know it's not. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But I can appreciate it as for what it is. I'm not going to make it something that it's not.
All this is all that equality sneakers was just his latest Black History Month editions. That's it. Every year they come out with these. Nike comes out with these Black History Month edition. Last year it had freaking Kente cloth on it, like, it's just.
I remember Adidas had one a couple years ago too, with like the quotes.
Yeah.
While Carter,
hey, welcome to America.
While Carter Godwin Woodson spins in his grave.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to say, and I haven't really addressed this very often, but I actually have a problem with the term or the word equality as it's being used. And this may seem like it's nothing.
As a woman, how dare you?
But it may seem like nothing to some people, or may seem like semantics. But if we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, then equality is not the question. Like, we're equal, if that's even the case. And I know that some
that's
people,
actually if you're a Caucasian man that owns land.
Yeah, but my point is
people.
that using that kind of word is if women or people of color, et cetera, are pursuing equality, it seems to indicate that there is inequality, like inherent inequality. And so I resist that. I think that some other term or expression needs to come forth saying that, yes, there is inherent equality. There's no question about that. But the expression of it in the way that society has built a system needs to make it so that the end result is equality of opportunity. So I have a problem with the term equality, as if, we as inherent, created beings are not equal. We are equal in that sense. I know, again, that there's some people who will say some folks are better than others, but based on the tenets of our own country, we are equal. Okay. And we are created equal. So I think that talking about equality of opportunity is actually a lot more responsible of a term.
Oh, instead of just saying equality, say equality of opportunity.
Equality, we are, we are equal in the sense of, in the image of God, equal agency and who we are and the talents and gifts that we bring to the table. However, from that perspective, we don't all have equality of opportunity, which is why you have all these gaps.
So I said this before. I think a lot of people, some people feel it, some people are gonna miss it, and they're just gonna go with whatever the Twitter trending hashtag is. Equality. You're following something that some 15-year-old Caucasian girl is retweeting, and now you're grown a black man, following after this stuff. You could this whole equality thing. Like, honestly, straight up, it's a power grab. That's what it is. I talked about this a little bit earlier about a lot of these quote unquote movements. A lot of these are just strategies. They're strategies to cause a little bit of ruckus for a particular constituency to be able to grab more of a foothold than they already have. Period. That's
what's
all
wrong
it
with
is.
That?
Well, I think that there can be a lot wrong with it because you, as an individual who does not necessarily understand what's happening, it's being manipulated. You are being manipulated to be able to provide a metric to allow for something to be brought about that is not necessarily completely to your benefit. I'll give you an example. Brought this up before, previous podcast with Black Lives Matter. Now, there's so many. I've seen the front of a lot of church buildings that have signs that say Black Lives Matter in front. Then after it got the rainbow flag. I don't know if you peeped that.
Yep.
I don't know if you peeped that.
Yep. We're in the District of Columbia.
Well, this is all over, right? Like this whole Black Lives Matter thing, people have to understand. If you again go past the veneer, oh yeah, Black lives do matter. Black lives matter. It's like saying support our troops. Right? Like, well, what does that actually mean? I don't know. Just support the troops. I don't know.
It means invade, man. You don't know that?
Support our troops.
We got to bring democracy everywhere.
Like there are these statements. They are these statements that are very difficult to disagree with. Breast cancer awareness. Who's going to disagree with that? But there are also statements that are very difficult to hold accountable. There are statements that are very difficult to criticize.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the whole Black Lives Matter initiative, just by going on the website and reading the About page, you will see that it is part and parcel with the sexual revolution. Okay? And so what that means is that there is a what's the word that I'm looking for? Tenet. There's a tenet that is in the heart of the Black Lives Matter movement to put front and center people that are pro the sexual revolution. All right. And that gets into the whole LGBT pecan initiative, the pink hand initiative. All of that is part and parcel with the Black Lives Matter movement. And so when you go around and you say, yeah, Black Lives Matter, and you follow this, you retweet that, you donate this, you march with that.
You say when you go down the rabbit hole, you'll arrive at something other than what you expected.
As someone who professes that they are a believer, absolutely. Okay. You have to be vigilant. You have to be critical about these things and not take this stuff at face value, even if it's LeBron James wearing a shirt that says, I can't breathe, Black Lives Matter. You got to pay attention.
So speaking of statements that you can't challenge, a la support the troops and what's it, breast cancer awareness, Black Lives Matter, all that. Here's another one that you can't assault or hold accountable. I hear from the Lord. Oh man. Again, shout out to my rock dwellers. But if you've been under a rock, you may not have heard about Mike Pence versus The View.
Shout out to Fraggle Rock.
Fraggle Rock, Jim Henson, who's literally under a rock because he's dead.
Shout out to Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Kicking it in the Shire. I don't think they know about this joint. They living under a rock. So.
What's the connection between Fraggle Rock and the Shire?
They both live under rocks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Hobbit, they live under rocks. So
go,
don't they?
Right. Yeah, they do. They kind of live in the side of a mountain.
Yeah, right. So,
don't try to laugh.
You got to be
off
inclusive,
the mic.
man.
Laugh
Inclusivity,
into the mic.
equality.
I want people to know my jokes are funny. My
so
jokes
easy
are
a
hilarious.
caveman can do it. You got to be equal. Whoa. That's offensive to the Neanderthal.
Oh my gosh.
So,
yeah, y'all
Mike,
laughing.
What about the treasure troll? Are they under rocks or just under bridges?
You mean the little like purple, green,
or just
red,
the
all the little
troll
trolls?
or the treasure troll? Anyway,
I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, shout out. You remember? I can't remember the name of the cartoon. The gnome joint. Remember the gnome joint? Like
they had
it
a
was
movie a couple years ago.
No. It was a cartoon on Nickelodeon. It was a gnome and his wife. And then
wow.
Yeah, they actually had it. Yeah, I loved it. I don't know, it was the brave little gnome, the brave gnome, it was something. But he was old. He was like 100, 200 years old. But he used to get his man. He wrote a fox. You remember that?
No.
And then the last episode he died. Like they actually had that for a kids show. He actually passed away. But that's important, to teach people
Man
about.
was died back, and remember Optimus Prime died, man. That hurt me when I was a kid.
He did.
Yeah, it hurt my heart.
He did. But
Anyway, we way off on a tangent, folks. We're not here to talk about cartoons.
No, I'm just saying that death is a part of life. That's all. You have to introduce it somehow.
So Mike Pence been going at it with
down
The
and
View.
lay down.
He been going at it with The View recently.
The View? What's that?
The View, the talk show, the ladies' talk show. Remember they had the men version too?
No,
I don't
actually,
remember
I
that.
don't.
Actually, I don't.
Yeah, it go back and search. It was like the dude from Saved by the Bell. He was the host.
Oh goodness.
What's the dude name? AC Slater. AC Slater was the
Bro, I'm sorry, I don't remember. I was doing anything.
Oh, you was watching the gnomes.
No,
yeah.
I
Don't try to hate on Saved by
I
the
was
Bell.
literally doing
You know you were
anything.
watching
That's why I don't know what you're talking about.
So he gonna come. See, y'all, do y'all hear this? He just mentioned a gnome riding a fox, but you about to hate on Zach and Slater.
That's what I just said. I was literally
Zach
doing
Morris?
anything. That's why I don't know.
I
You
think
talking AC
the
Slater?
denial-
See, he know.
I think
no.
denial is
The
taking place.
ethnically ambiguous AC Slater. Like, what was that dude?
I thought he was
guess
Hispanic.
he was Hawaiian. I don't know what.
Anyway, so but
He
they
had a Jerry
the,
curl,
They
though.
they had the
He
male
still
version
has a
of
Jerry
The View.
curl, I think. All right.
No, he doesn't have the Jerry curl.
The
but
male version of The View.
but they recently, and that's Whoopi Joy Bear.
Male
Yeah.
or men version of The View? Because like, is it like were they born female,
Oh,
but then they
man,
were
nah,
like,
stop.
but they recognized as
Stop.
men? No, I'm just
Stop.
asking.
I'm not even going in with you right now.
So
Whoopi and them were going at Mike Pence because for those of you who don't know, Miss Omarosa, I don't even know how to pronounce her
Manigault,
name.
bro.
Manigault.
Yeah,
Thank you.
come on now.
But she has a couple of additional surnames because she.
Hyphenated. She was one of them
But
hyphenated.
then she just
You
got
mean man
married
names?
last
Man-
year to a preacher, but then she had been divorced. So I can't keep up with her name. So yeah, Manigault. It makes sense to just say Manigault.
// All right. So she's back. For those of you who don't know, she was voted off the island. She's no longer in the White House, and she's back doing her reality TV. It's like the
Which is
disciples.
what you know them for,
Right.
not just her, but him as well.
It's like
Trump.
when Peter and them went back fishing after Jesus was gone, right? So
When they
she's
had no
back.
clothes on.
She's back doing her reality TV thing, and so on a recent reality TV appearance, she goes into this monologue about Mike Pence's extreme faith, is what she called it. She said his faith is extreme, insinuating extremism. She talks about how he claims to, quote unquote, hear from the Lord, how he quotes to hear, Jesus speaks to him. The Lord speaks to him. Now, for those of you who've been in any kind of church environment, any kind of Christian culture,
This is
that's
normative.
commonplace, right? That's a normal statement. And somebody says, oh man, I was praying and I feel like God told me to blank, right? That's normal,
Yeah.
quote unquote, air quotes, normal behavior for a community of believers. But in that environment, right, in the White House, West Wing environment, to say, hey, I think I heard from the Lord, that is perceived as extreme faith. So then the women on The View, in particular Joy Behar and Sunny Hostin. If you don't know Sunny Hostin, she was a former lawyer who then became a legal advisor to CNN, and she's now a co-host of The View. So she comes from a legal background. So of course
she's on The View.
They just out to make money. So she's going to assault it from a legal perspective. That's why I wanted to give you her point of view, her background. So they begin to insinuate that Mike Pence claims to hear from the Lord is actually hearing voices, and that would insinuate mental illness. And so they make the implication that Christianity could be akin to a mental illness if you're claiming to not speak to the Lord when you're praying or whatever, but that you're now hearing from the Lord. You're hearing someone speak back. And then they started to make jokes. Yeah. Oh, when Jesus speak back, that's a problem. That's when it's a problem, right? So I wanted to throw it out to y'all because the one thing that I thought about when I was watching there's a Washington Post article, because she did call and apologize later, but the damage I think was already done. It's like throwing a hand grenade out, blowing all that up. My bad, I didn't mean to blow all that up, but it's already blown up, right? It didn't blow up. Is this? There's a scripture in the book of Romans that says that the name of God is blasphemed among heathen because of you, and it's Paul speaking to Roman believers, and it basically is like, because of your behavior, because of your conduct, unbelievers, heathens, they will see that and then blaspheme the name of God.
Basically mock him, mock you, mock everything related
Make it all a mockery, exactly. So being a believer is now made a mockery of because of your unsavory character and behavior. And I think that Mike Pence puts himself in this situation because, I'm not here to question Mike's faith. He says he believes in God, he believes in the Savior. Okay, sure, I'm with you. One, come all, sure, but you've tied yourself at the hip with a man who is clearly an unbeliever. You have knitted yourself to this man, and so now you are in murky waters, right? I didn't know Mike Pence before he was picked as 45's running mate. I know he was a governor of Indiana.
Yes.
So he was the governor of Indiana, yes. Right? No offense, but one of the flyover states. Nobody's tripping off Indiana, right? And he now comes into the national spotlight, but as someone of quote unquote of faith.
Actually, a lot of people trip off of Indiana.
I guess if you're a Hoosier.
No. It has a lot. Indiana is like
Hoosiers.
ground zero for the sexual revolution. Look up the Kinsey Institute. It sounds funny, but all the stuff is interrelated.
Is it in Indianapolis?
I don't remember if it's in Indianapolis, but it is in Indiana.
It could be.
But he came from that soil.
Yeah, absolutely.
He came from that general area.
And the working with the Rockefeller Foundation. But yeah, you gotta look up Alfred Kinsey. We'll get into that on another podcast. But don't sleep.
I'm
just saying, like a lot of. That's what I heard.
The wickedness of men runs deep. The Bible says the heart of men is desperately wicked. So nobody sleep here.
Okay.
Anyway, so
right.
Mike Pence has tied himself to a clear unbeliever. But now to then say, I'm a man of faith and this and that and the third. It's like, well, hold on. But where was your faith when 45 came knocking your door saying, let's do this White House thing? Where was your faith at then? So I think you put yourself in a position to be ridiculed and have the Lord himself ridiculed by unbelievers, by clear unbelievers. I know Sunny Hostin says, I was raised a Catholic. If you can mock the Lord openly on national television, you're an unbeliever to me, right? If Joy Behar, is she Jewish or is she Catholic?
She didn't say what her denomination was, but she did say that she came from a Christian background, and she even said, I am a Christian.
Yes.
So I apologize because what I said was taken out of context, or I didn't mean
what
I was saying.
Just in the context.
So that's what she says. She actually declared herself a Christian.
So
yeah.
I'm sorry, I talked over you. Richard Spencer says he's a Christian, but he's actually very clear about his faith. He calls himself a cultural Christian, which I wish more people were more
upfront about.
more clear about the things in which that they say they believe.
But if you can openly mock the Lord on national television, to me, I don't even need to talk to you about where you come. Like, I don't need to talk to you about that no more. Like, I'm good. Like, we're good. Now, if you want to repent, we can start there. We can start with repenting, because the Bible clearly says, if you deny me among men, I will deny you in front of my Father.
Clearly.
So that's Bible. You ain't got to argue with me. You can argue with the guy who wrote that inscription. So what say you? I think Mike Pence has put himself in a situation to be mocked and have the Lord mocked.
Well, so to speak directly to what you said about Mike Pence putting himself in certain positions, a lot of people use their faith and use religion as a proxy to usher in and to control and to do certain things that the proletariat or the general public are just not made aware of or don't really understand. Just to speak specifically to Mike Pence, clearly what he saw was an opportunity to conserve whatever it is that means, to be able to fashion the environment in which that he lives in to abide by things in which that he feels as though are important. So as far as him going with Donald Trump, clearly the man would have gone with anybody.
If you can go with him.
Yeah, he would have won with anybody. He doesn't care. A lot of those people don't care. All they care about is policy. That's it. So that's one thing. Now, the other thing I would say, speaking directly to this comment about it's when Messiah speaks back to you is where you need a mental health check, is part of the agenda that is happening with the controllers of popular culture and corporations and whether it's the owners of Disney who pull her leash and made her apologize, or the owners of any of these other institutions and companies, that there are real people and they do exist, and they practice Luciferianism, they practice thelema, the thelemist, and which means that they live a life where they follow their flesh. Where that's actually a virtue to feed the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eye and the pride of life, like all those things, and particularly people who sit in these seats on television, they're put in those positions to deculturalize and despiritualize, dereligiousize the popular culture, their audience.
Let me go back though to the foundational statement you made, saying that certain people are Luciferians.
Yeah.
How do you even know that?
Well,
where do you get that from?
Yeah, I'm gonna get into that. I'll get into that in another podcast. But it's actually you just have to look it up. There's a man named Aleister Crowley who founded this belief system called thelema, and this practice is actually part and parcel with Hollywood and the entertainment industry in the inner circles. There's a documentary called Hollywood Babylon that speaks specifically about this. Sammy Davis Jr. Was a member of the Church of Satan. There's a lady.
Not Sammy Davis.
Yeah, Sammy. Yeah.
Not Sammy Davis.
Yeah, Sammy Davis. Yeah, there are photos of him with.
What about the rest of the rap?
Stephen Anton Levy. A lot of these I can't really speak on. I can speak
All
on
Blue
Sammy.
Eyes.
I can speak in Frank Sinatra is heavy in a lot of stuff. I will continue my research and get into that in another podcast.
The reason
in that regard,
yeah.
But specifically, if you look up Sammy Davis Jr. Church of Satan, there's a photo of him on the website of the Church of Satan. But
I just wanted you to know the primary reason I bring this up is because I know that people get turned off as soon as claims like that are made. Mm-hmm. When you look at globally, when you look at statistics about the world as well as about this particular country, and you look at religion, mm-hmm. you'll see percentages of people who claim one religion versus the other, and never do you see Satanism. Or if you do, you'll see 1% of crazy people in the corner over there say that they practice it. So whereas the evidence is what the question would be.
One, a lot of things are hidden in plain sight. But two, if you want to talk about the Church of Satan, there's Luciferianism, and then there's the Church of Satan. There are people that believe all these things. There are people that believe only some. You have different concoctions. But if you speak specifically about the Church of Satan, they were founded in San Francisco, and I'm telling you right now, all you have to do is do the research. They are completely integrated into the Hollywood system.
Even though they're up in San Francisco.
Even though, San Francisco is a hotbed for this kind of thing. San Francisco, you have the Salem Institute. The Salem Institute was a key place where this practice called EST, or breaking people down to their most banal selves, was something that was a big part of the countercultural movement. That was huge with hippies, was huge with the Black Power movement. All these things will again, just because all these things are right past the veneer surface. All you gotta do is just do some of the research. A lot of these things are interconnected. But the Church of Satan, Chelsea Clinton tweeted them a couple years ago. She tweeted them. Like, you could look up that tweet. That's not a false note. That's real. She tweeted them. It's real people who really practice these things. They invoke demons to possess them. They do practices to show their honor to said particular demon. Practices such as human sacrifice, sexual acts, other kinds of things. These are real things. You can read websites. You can hear people talk about it. They do these practices.
So is it your contention that while most of the rest of the population says this is folklore, what are you even talking about demons and all this? Those who are in charge, who are behind the curtain of the puppet show, actually know about the spiritual realm, whereas everyone else is kind of blinded to that?
Well, I would say it's not everyone else. It's probably just the people that or they're not telling you. But these practices are actually far more popular than we realize. All you got to do is just, first of all, if you're, the reason why a lot of these things aren't talked about is because you're not supposed to talk about these things, right? They're hidden in secret, blood oaths, all that stuff, right? But just when it comes to masonry, in masonry, like, you cannot be a Mason if you don't believe in a higher power. You cannot. That's one of the foundational things in which that you have to profess to attain membership.
Just to be a bricklayer, you need to believe in a higher power?
That's funny. Yeah, just to be, let's wink, wink, nod, nod. Yeah, bricklayer. Yeah. So, but we know in the inner circles they honor the Baphomet, the great architect of the universe, right? The cleft foot goat god, the hooved foot goat god, the Baphomet. But these are real. These are the pentagram, upside down pentagram. These are real things. So for people, for the air quotes masses that just brush this stuff off, that just shows that they are not looking past the surface of things, or they don't want to look past the surface of things. All you have to do is take out a dollar bill. Look at the back of the dollar bill. What does it say? In God we trust, right? And does it have, references to the biblical narrative? No, not necessarily, not at all. What it has on it is a broken pyramid, with the top of the pyramid separated from the base of the pyramid representing the proletariat or just the regular folk. The top of the pyramid represents the people of the inner know, inner knowledge, and the all-seeing eye, and the founders and the crafters of this country. So, you have the District of Columbia that's laid out in a certain way, right? You have the Pentagon that's the inside of a pentagram, the way in which the Pentagon is shaped. Like, all these things, you have the Washington Monument that is representative of a phallus. Like, all of these, you look at the Kennedy Center and how it looks like a court.
And that's what like, you mean by hidden in plain sight.
Yeah,
so
it looks a Greek court.
Behind the power structure and different phenomena that you're talking about, AJ, exists.
Yeah.
The principalities and powers that those of us who claim to believe the Bible should already be familiar with, at least conceptually. Well, this should not be complete surprise, whereas other folks might just still be within the realm of the matrix and will only see what's being shown to them.
Well, if you think about it, the reason that the majority of believers would be unaware of most of those things, because the Bible speaks about all of that. In the book of Daniel, the archangel Gabriel actually tells Daniel, the prince of Persia helped me up from coming here. So when we think about an archangel, there was a prince powerful enough to withstand the archangel Gabriel for like 21 days, I believe that the scripture says. So we're not talking about the mom and pop, backwater church that says, I rebuke you, demon, in the name of Jesus. People jumping with snakes. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about a much larger power structures that the Bible speaks directly to. And I think the reason that many believers, because I don't expect the average individual to be cognizant of that. People are blind. But what I do expect is a believer to be cognizant of that. But the reason I don't think they are is because we're too busy getting back to the original point of Mike Pence. We're too busy looking for a seat at the table of ungodly kings. And, we've talked about this before with the Edict of Milan.
Facts.
And Constantinople
Very
and Constantine.
True. Very true.
That, where you had believers who had already infiltrated the entire Roman Empire, right? Yet and still they were approached by the Roman emperor like, yo, you want a seat at my table?
And they say yes, massa.
Right. Instead of saying, yo, we own the table. Like, we already got the table.
Absolutely.
Like, at that point, at 3rd century AD, there is no Roman Empire without Christianity. But we didn't even realize that. Like, we didn't realize at that point there is no Roman Empire without Christianity. But yet and still, we were still enticed because there's still there's still, like the Bible talks about, the lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. That is, no matter how, quote unquote, mature we think we are, there is still a level of enticement there that must be resisted. And so I think that when you have someone like Mike Pence, who, listen, you can tell that he has some sort of background. When you've heard the things that he said about like how he's not like to be around single women without his wife and stuff like that, that there's something there. But yet and still, it wasn't enough for him to resist the power grab, right? All of that wasn't enough for him to say, yeah, I'd love to be vice president, but not with this man. Like, all of your background wasn't enough for that.
Or it could have just been his notion of sincerity that I think a lot of people in his position would have, that they would sincerely say, okay, this man is going to choose a vice president. I might as well be someone with some level of some kind of morality in that position. I might as well, maybe he thought he would be more influential than he turned out to be.
And you're right.
And I'm not a Mike Pence fan, but I think that a lot of people who are blinded or people who are in this position think that somehow, okay, well, look, there's an open position. God wants his light and salt every place. Let me get in there. Maybe I can make a difference.
No, you're exactly right. There are a lot of sincere believers, because I've heard that line of thought before, where people say, oh, somebody's going to be there anyway. Why not let it be a believer? Why not let me come in there, right? The only problem is you are not going to change a system. You, the individual, and I want to say that again, you, the individual, are not going to change a system. The notion of any system is to keep itself going. The system will adapt, the system will adjust, the system will find ways to keep itself going. The only way that you deal with the system is it has to be completely crushed and dismantled. Case in point, the Messiah is literally on the cross dying for the sins of people, right? And the Bible says that when he died, the veil in the temple was rent from floor to ceiling. So what that tells me, there were people still in the temple making sacrifices, literally as the Lamb of God, capital L, was dying for the sins of all people. What does that say? The institution was going to keep it moving, baby. So he was already there for 33 years. And it was like, yeah, that's cool that he's doing that, but we're going to keep this thing rolling. So God has to literally dismantle the institution. He would look at the disciples and say, yo, there will not be a brick left standing. Because if I leave a brick, you're going to find a way to keep the institution going.
We're going to have church up in
right.
here.
They're going to find a way to keep. So God said, you know what? The joint has to come down. The joint, all of it has to come down. And so I say all that to say, for any sincere believer who you think you by yourself is holy enough to change these systems, you are not. And what you'll find is you will find yourself swept up into, and that's any institution, educational, religious, political, judicial, financial, any of them. You will find yourself swept up. This is why Jesus would tell the disciples when they say, yo, Jesus, are you here? And of course they said, yo. Are you here to give the kingdom back to Israel? Remember, they asked him, they said, I'm not here for that. That's not what I'm here. My kingdom's not of this. So God is not here to try to prop up earthly institutions. He's not here to try to validate or co-sign. And I think that's where people of Mike Pence's ilk, have gotten off. Now, I don't know Mike personally. I don't know the vice president. No, man, I wish I did, because he could sponsor us anytime. He could sponsor me right now. You know what I'm saying? I know Mike got deep pockets. He hanging out with the people on CBN.
Oh my gosh.
Whoa, zing.
Zing 'em. But I think that it's just, I think it's a bit naive It's a bit naive to think that I'm holy enough, I'm just holy enough to go in and change this system that at the top of it has the Cosmo Crater as its head.
And he's too old for that naivete.
What's the Cosmo Crater?
That is a name reference to the enemy, Lucifer, Satan, Ha-Satan in Scripture. He's the Cosmo Crater, the God of this world. When you hear God of this world, cosmos means world. He is the God of this world, the Cosmo Crater.
Well,
so I just got real Bible-y for a minute, but I think that it's good to put these
actually,
things
you got
in.
Bible-y for about 10 minutes.
Oh, about 10 minutes. All right, there we go.
It's good. It's good.
So let's keep with this theme going, because normally we get on preachers for our This Week in the News, but we're gonna keep it kind of quasi political here for our This Week in the News. So there was a Florida lawmaker. Oh man, let's pull this lady's name. I think her name is Kimberly Daniels.
Danielson or good.
So
Yeah, just look her up.
Her name's Kimberly Daniels, right? She's a Florida lawmaker, which I think is pretty funny.
So she's part of the Florida legislature.
Yeah, she's
Okay, so this is a state legislature. She's not.
not at the national
US
level. Yeah, no, she's a state rep.
Yeah.
And they are making a push to get the statement "In God We Trust" put back up in schools in Florida since that high school shooting that recently
So
happened.
wait. So is the mindset that if "In God We Trust" is
That'll
there,
stop all the guns.
then the sociopaths who want to shoot up children are going to say, "Oh, in God we trust." I guess I'm going to stop being sociopathic.
They're going to turn all their guns in at the buyback program.
That's my question.
I'll let you continue. I do have some things to.
But I just want to enter it in, because she's going to go on our This Week of the News wall of shame here, because she has sponsored a bill.
I do want to know what the motive is. Okay, I'm going to start obeying the first and second commandment and stop being a sociopath who kills people and
that's essentially
neglects the God that I claim to serve. That's
let me read you a couple of her quotes. While giving her speech on the "In God We Trust" bill, she brought up the recent shooting at Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida, and she says, I quote, that God is the light, and that our schools need the light in them like never before. She went on to say that the real thing that needs to be addressed are the issues of the heart. Now, all of that is true.
Yes, of course.
But this is where she, I think, is foolish. Putting up a sign that says "In God We Trust," that is not addressing the issues of the heart. So, but here's the sad part about it. I think she actually believes that it will.
How so? I still want to know the connection between a sign and a sociopath.
I'll try to make the
Well, there is no connection.
I'll try to make a connection.
You donating to her campaign too later?
Here we go. Because you actually you neglected to further read her opposition, who her opposition was in that article. But in what was the name of the opposition? Was some of the people that had critiqued it?
Let me scroll down. By the way, this is an article in the Griot, if you want to look it up. The Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Yeah,
they are. They have a campaign going because they have weighed in on this bill, so they're now pushing back on the bill because they're saying that she's trying to turn the state of Florida into a theocracy, which is hogwash. Their thoughts are that this nation was founded on secular values,
which is a lie. But continue.
They actually have, and if you go to the Griot article, Griot is GRIO. They actually have a video of her.
GRIOT.
No,
GRIOT.
They don't put the T on the end.
Don't
Okay,
put the T.
Cool.
Guess they figured that so-called black folks can't read, so can't pronounce stuff. We're gonna just drop the T.
Griot. We like that's the Griot. You go over the Griot. But they have a YouTube clip of her preaching, because for those of you who don't know, she's like a licensed minister. So they have different video clips.
License meaning permission, right?
Permission from men to do something that you don't need permission from men to do. But that's
I just
another
wanted to be
discussion.
clear,
So, but they have some video clips up of her preaching, and Listen, she comes from the black church tradition, so she's up there doing her Robo Tayo joint, right? So she's up there doing that, and then
homiletics.
Yeah. Well, no, beyond homiletics, she's on. She's full fledged speaking in tongues and glossia.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
conjuring, got it.
And so what their point is that because of her background, she is trying to make Florida into a theocracy, which is Florida is one of 50 states in a union. That's impossible to make one state in a union of states a theocracy, but that's another point for another day. I think just that statement that the country was founded on secular values is also a misguided statement.
It's a lie. It's more than a misguided statement. It's a straight up lie.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
It's almost more misguided than the Pilgrims and Puritans who came for religious reasons and destroyed the lives of whole ethnicities.
Well, you have to go to the core of an organization that's called the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to say this, and let's get this on the airwaves, because I hope that they come at me. Freedom from Religion, come at me.
Mm-hmm. Holla.
It is the reason that you're even able to create an organization called the Freedom from Religion Foundation is because of the love that is expressed through Christianity.
Wow.
Try this in a Muslim country. Why don't you go try this in Saudi Arabia? Why don't you go over to Saudi Arabia and make the Saudi branch of the Freedom from Religion Foundation? You want to know why? Because they'll chop your head off. The liberties that are allowed in Christianity allow people to even create organizations like this. So to make the statement,
and not just Muslim, by the way, not just.
I just use that because it's one of the biggest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yes, you can go into any one of these Buddhists, communists.
Or,
any
more smaller
ritualistic,
ritualistic tribes and whatnot.
They will chop you into bits and feed you to their puppies, right?
Yep.
It is the liberty that is allowed in Christ that would allow you to say, you know what, in a country that the majority of people still, quote unquote, profess to believe in a God, I'm going to create an organization called Freedom from Religion. So I just wanted to put that out there, because to say that this nation was founded on secular values. Now, were the people who founded this nation godless to a certain degree? Of course they were. Because they owned people, they exterminated people, they were, materialistic. They were, seeking wealth. Yes, they all had their terrible, horrible faults.
Also, they were theists and Masons. So that is evidential, is written, is professed. So that right there shows you that the founding of this country was not secular.
Exactly.
That's just a lie.
That's my
because
point.
even a deist isn't a secularist.
Theist,
exactly.
yeah.
Well, them too.
yeah. Theist. Prius, Toyota Prius. Yeah. Well, what I wanted to say, trying to connect the sign to the heart. I just wanted to get into it goes a little bit about what I just had talked about in the previous issue with Joy Bear, and that is the goal to deculturalize the citizens of this country.
Well, secularize them. I mean, essentially same thing.
Yeah, secularize. Yeah, but I want to be clear, like deculturalize, because every culture, and I ain't gonna necessarily go study every culture, but for every culture that I have studied and I have looked at, there have been very few. I probably throw two fingers up to count versus I run out of fingers and toes of nations, lineages, clans, and groups of people that are secular.
You're just saying throughout human history, you just don't see secularism as a norm throughout the annals of time.
What I'm saying is, in order to govern, in order to have a culture, there's a moral code, there's a higher authority that gets looked to through generations as the standard of how to conduct oneself. Mm-hmm. There is a higher authority that is looked to. There's a higher authority, right? And I'm an advocate of the biblical narrative because of what I've found. That has made the most sense. You do you, player. I can't force anybody to believe anything. But I am an advocate of the biblical narrative for reasons in which I can get into on another podcast. But
either
the
way,
goal, the the goal, or what's happening in this country, this goal to deculturalize, it's not just an attack on the biblical narrative, but what it is it's a goal trying to control the population.
Well, yeah, but if you were saying earlier that one thing that was put in place for the purpose of population control, not even necessarily a negative thing, but just to provide a moral code, were these moral and spiritual standards. So then why would they now try to remove that aspect of culture in order to control the population?
Because there are many aspects of that moral code that don't gel. It's not like everybody's on the same team here. Mm-hmm. There are many aspects of that moral code that do not gel or that interfere with certain agents and certain groups, what their goals are.
Okay.
All right. And so that is why it is being undermined. The higher authority, the reason why the higher authority is being attacked is because that if you can cast down somebody's God, but particularly if you can despiritualize a person, then that means that they're more susceptible to be controlled, because they'll look to you. They will look to the state. They will look to the country as their God. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that is the ultimate goal. This freedom from religion stuff is only to bring about chaos. It goes back to the things in which that people want to do without shame. Even though everybody could be doing it, you're still gonna have shame, player.
Well,
because
they'll say freedom. They won't say it's to bring about chaos. It's about freedom. We have this one life on this earth.
Yeah,
why should we not be free to do what we want to do?
That's what right. That's what they say, but that is chaos. That will be chaos, because
if everybody did what they wanted to do, what stops me from going and taking what you got?
But that's Luciferianism.
Yeah.
That is Luciferianism, and so
anarchy.
Yeah, and so which is
we could just look at Mogadishu and other places where there's anarchy.
But let's go a little bit further
Somalia.
into Miss Daniels' comments, because
I just want to say, like, the whole thing about "In God We Trust," what that is doing. Again, I guess you can kind of already get what I'm saying, but just to be clear, that is trying to allude to a higher moral code that fights against the despiritualization that is happening of society. And clearly this is done in light of all of the crazy things that have been going on, as far as like people being slaughtered like this, for people to be able to then stand up and have an affront on this biblical narrative purely because it makes them feel guilty.
Right.
Purely because it makes them feel guilty.
You have to be accountable.
To be purely because it makes them feel like they have to be held accountable, and they don't want to be held accountable, is creating the gateway. It is creating the gateway for all of these things in which that are happening in society. If I want to do as thou wilt, then I can take an AR-15 and I can go mow down all these kids in high school. I can carry the lunchbox to school and pull out the fire stick and block a blocker. I can do that.
And then claim mental illness and say, because it was, it's not my fault.
I can do that, and so.
But similar to Mike Pence, I think Miss Daniels,
and there are obviously other things in between, but
it's either that or just getting the AR-15. Similar to Mike Pence, I just think that Miss Daniels opens herself up to ridicule, because if you continue to read her comments, she then goes into her, mentioning her gratitude for slavery. And so this is why she's in This Week in the News, folks. You was wondering why. I got nothing against Florida bills. That's their business.
Yeah, I want to get into this part right here.
So she continues in her comments to then say, I'm appreciative of slavery. I'm thankful for slavery. Sorry. I'm thankful for slavery. Because without slavery, I may have been somewhere in Africa right now worshiping a tree. I just think the cultural ignorance of that statement, though there is some validity to it, where in terms of she might not necessarily be a quote unquote Christian, right? Okay, I can follow you. If you're saying without slavery, me as an American of African descent may not be a Christian. Okay, I can follow you there. If you would have stopped there and said, I'm thankful because I get to know the Lord, and the reason I get to know the Lord is because my family was enslaved. Boom. If she stops there, I'm good. But to then insinuate that an entire continent of nearly 1 billion people are all running around worshiping trees is the reason why the black church has lost so many people to the Hotep and conscious crowd, because of the cultural ignorance of those in leadership. Because, by the way, as we mentioned earlier, she is a licensed minister. She preaches sermons, runs Sunday services, all the like. You can go to the link and see her preaching on Sunday mornings. But I think the cultural ignorance to make that kind of a statement, again, puts her in a similar boat, because you open yourself up to mockery and ridicule. Because if I already have a particular, stance with black church, and then I hear this statement, I'm gonna be like, you know what? I'm good. Like, I'm good. Why come back?
Well, actually, if one celebrates Christmas, particularly with trees, they do worship trees, but.
But it would be the Christians, and
not
the animists.
So there's that,
or ancestral supposed worshippers in the continent of Africa.
Yeah. But I just, I really wanted to jump on that.
Jeremiah speaks against those trees, by the way. But go ahead.
Come on.
But that was thousands of years before.
Moving right along.
So, but I really wanted to jump in this part and just speak to some things in regard to this, because when we look at people who originate or we credit as being originated from the continent, and then we look at the things of God as related to the Bible that we know in our culture or are familiar with in our culture, and when we look at the Bible and then we look at Africa and we see this at odds thing, and we look at the Bible and people. We accredit it to the Caucasian. We say, "Oh, that's a white man's religion," or if we do accept it, we either have these pictures of a Caucasian man in which we reference as or use as a symbol for our Savior, or even looking at a lot of European art that is credited to come from the Renaissance, and things, Madonna and Child, either paintings or sculptures, bronze art, ceramic art, stuff that Michelangelo did, Michelangelo's David, Leonardo da Vinci, and all these paintings and frescoes, and Raphael and all that. And we see Caucasian men. We see Caucasian men, and so
Sistine Chapel, yes.
Sistine Chapel, and then you have the Pope, and you have Roman Catholicism, and then missionaries, right? And missionaries going to the continent and a lot of underdeveloped nations, and setting up outposts and burning the local ancestral items and preaching the gospel. We tend to think that it is a white man's religion or a Caucasian man's religion, and that it is not. It was forced upon us, and I just want to let people know that actually, when it comes to the biblical narrative, all of that takes place and originates from people of darker complected skin tones. People of darker complected skin tones who walked through not only what we call the continent of Africa, but also walked through Western Asia. Now we call that the Middle East.
Yep.
They walked through Europe. They walked everywhere.
Yep.
And the lines in which that we look at, and the map in which that we look at, are maps that were drawn by Caucasians. Caucasians draw those lines. Caucasians draw the line between Mizraim, or what they call and now we call Egypt, and Western Asia, between the Nile and the Euphrates River. And they do that, but we come from all of those areas. And so when we say that the Bible, the biblical narrative of the gospel, is a white man's religion, what we're doing is we're looking at a facsimile, something that comes from people who look like you, and then adopted and remixed books of the Bible taken out that would incriminate them.
In addition to that, when you look at the migration patterns of the continent of Africa and how many groups of people came originally from Eastern and in Northeast Africa, west, way before
Absolutely.
our ancestors were picked up. And even when those quote unquote white missionaries did arrive, there were ethnic groups from the Limba in South Africa to the Igbo in modern day Nigeria and all throughout the continent that were circumcising their boys and that were doing a lot of things that we see in the Old Testament. And so even the people who say, okay, we know it's not a white man's religion, but Christianity was in East Africa, it did not touch our ancestors, that's only a partial truth because a lot of these folks were practicing the Judeo, what we now call the Judeo part of Judeo-Christianity from these particular parts of West Africa where our ancestors were snatched.
Yeah,
this is not propaganda. This is actual fact.
Yes. We want all worshiping trees is what I'm trying to get at. And
that's
so,
why that statement I think is so culturally ignorant.
Yes.
And which would open the door for the Hotep crowd. Because you have the Hotep crowd saying, how can black people be Christians? Y'all are foolish. And then you hear this, right? Then you hear this. It literally just like says, go right along, go on over and listen to what they have to say, because it's clear that I have no desire, right, to be culturally conscious, to not realize that this is not a quote unquote, and I don't even really hate that term, the white man's religion, but for lack of a better term, right? To also understand, I pulled up a
no religion. What religion originates in Europe? There are some, but even the major three religions are at the intersection of Africa, Asia, and that part of the world is where these religions are. So it doesn't even. There is no white man's religion.
See, but I don't even look at it from the religious standpoint.
Well,
if we're talking about religion.
Well, no, I mean, but her final statement, I look at it from a cultural standpoint, because you would never hear someone say, I would just be up in Europe worshiping a tree. You see what I'm saying? Because we have a particular perspective in which we view.
Yeah, people that look like you are from Europe too, by the way. But
Caucasian culture. I'm not going to get into semantics, but we have a particular viewpoint of that culture. So we would never say that, even though they were barbarians. Most of the Germanic countries were barbarian, but we don't say that. We'll say that about Africa because in some way, shape, or form we think they just all swinging from trees, right? I wouldn't be doing that. Thank God for slavery. I think that's so short-sighted. Well, and
she's been indoctrinated, and she's a woman of age, and at this point, one would think she's an aged woman, and one would think at this point she might have looked out at the world once or twice and concluded, no, my people didn't come from ooga booga folks climbing from and worshiping trees and banging on their chests.
Yeah, I think it's just Dr. David Daniels did an interview talking about the permeation of Christianity into the continent of Africa. And I just wanted to make that point because a lot of times we like to relegate Christianity to that intersection and to East Africa, Ethiopia.
Yes.
Christianity was well deep into Central and South Central, the southern part of Central Africa. I know, right? It was Ice Cube and all of them was in there worshiping God. But into Central Africa, along many of the trade routes, there are a lot of historical artifacts that were found that still were in line with the quote-unquote Judeo-Christian heritage. So I think this notion that there were just a couple of spots on the coast of North Africa and in Ethiopia, and those were the only Christians on the continent, I think is, again, it's short-sighted, and it continues to perpetuate that lens that Avery was talking about where, oh no, I'm looking at this through a Caucasian European lens.
And clearly believers in the Messiah, because Christ is a Greek word. Mm-hmm. Christ is a Greek word, right? So that term doesn't necessarily originate from the continent per se, which is why I don't even like using the term.
Ooh. You about to get crucified.
Yeah, but admittedly,
so his name is not Jesus.
No, it's not.
It's Christ, Jesus. It's not his name.
Nah, it's it's pronounced different ways. Different people say different things, but it certainly doesn't start with a J.
Right.
He's certainly not labeled Christ.
Right.
Or Christos. That is a from.
So let's just go ahead and put this out here. He is Yeshua, the Anointed One. That's actually His name.
Well, yeah.
The Anointed One is actually a title.
There's Yahshua.
And nobody speaks ancient Hebrew anymore, but we're doing the best we can with that name.
You don't speak ancient Hebrew?
There's
I do all the time.
There's Yahshua. There's Yahushua. There's Esau. People don't know when they say Easter joke, Easter this, Easter that. I wonder how many people actually know they're invoking the name of the Messiah when they say that.
I bet y'all stop
Did
your
you know
hashtags now.
Did you know that? Like, it's not necessarily French, but it's West African. It might be French,
and that's another thing.
Esau. It's Arabic. That's what it is. It's
Aramaic.
Aramaic.
But that's an additional thing. In addition to the migration patterns that were mentioned earlier, you have these language. You have the Hebrew, ancient Hebrew. Where there's a difference between what's spoken now. Language families and traces of linguistics throughout the continent of Africa that shows that migration has taken place. And even when the Portuguese came, and they were the earliest to come from Europe to Africa to quote unquote evangelize.
Yes, that is correct.
They bumped directly into some things that were slightly familiar.
That is exactly correct.
People don't realize that when they read the Bible and you see the
and they
Ethiopian
came down through
eunuch,
North Africa.
The Ethiopian eunuch was reading the Old Testament, and he was well versed in the Old Testament already. Like, he was reading the book of Isaiah as someone who was well versed in it. He merely asked Philip to articulate what this is saying, but it wasn't like, I don't know what's going on. So I think we just got to, to really get back to Miss Daniel's comments here, is we have to no longer, be people who are not just biblically ignorant and spiritually ignorant, but I think we can't get by as people who are culturally ignorant as well. And I think, believers, one of our biggest Achilles heels in Christendom, so to speak, is being culturally ignorant. I've heard the stories where missionaries go overseas and preach an American gospel, and it's like you're culturally ignorant when you do things like that. And I think that, comments like, oh, I appreciate slavery because I didn't want to be worshiping a tree, it just continues to perpetuate that kind of mindset. So,
of course, it doesn't speak to her triple great grandmother who would look back at her and say, what? So she's, she didn't even experience slavery to even be able to say,
exactly,
I'm thankful for slavery. What?
And there's evidence. Still doing my research, but there's evidence that, and it goes back to something I was saying earlier. Not everybody originates, like our skin tone is here directly because of slavery.
Exactly.
Some of us came from Europe. Just look at 1616. Like, you had this indentured servitude, and you had people. It wasn't just Caucasians. You had people of our skin tone. Well, you think they just happened to they catch a ship over here from like it came through Europe. Some people did come through from the continent directly. Some people walked. Some people were here already. Like, it wasn't just everybody just came in chains.
And we know about humanity's wealthiest man, Mansa Musa, who had sent delegations here, who landed in Central America and never returned. So, again, I think the whole point and the principle of the matter, which was alluded to earlier by Avery, is critical thinking. Let's not be sufferers of Stockholm syndrome and passive people who just look at ourselves through the eyes of others, like the lawmaker in Florida. Let's actually think critically about the information that's put before us instead of just regurgitating and cloning ourselves after those perspectives.
So anybody interested, I would just encourage you. There's a couple of books I'd encourage you. One is called the African Impact on the Christian Mind, and the other one is Black in the Bible, I believe it's called. I'll put it on the Facebook links. But again, it's to kill that notion that there is no African essence, in the scriptures. And I think that we have to. Oh man. We can't get by on cultural ignorance any longer. I think it like Mike Pence, the issue with Mike Pence. I think it can allow the name of God to be blasphemed amongst unbelievers when we continue to perpetuate cultural ignorance. But,
and let me add to that, They Came Before Columbus by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, and there are other resources. What we were just giving you guys a few. There are other resources that talk about the pervasiveness of melanated people on this planet, and help you to not just look at this one narrative that says somebody was beaten down as a slave and here you are.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And also, people need to look at people look up Olmec statues, OLMEC.
Yeah.
Olmec statues in Mexico, and you look at them, and
They look African.
I'm
Yeah,
looking.
they look
I'm
like,
looking at an Olmec head right now.
yeah, they look like our
Amadi
host,
Williams.
Amadi. And if you look at the Olmec statues, they those statues were here. I didn't Ivan Van Sertima talk about these, the Olmec statues, and the Sentinels from the X-Men are based off the Olmec statues. If you look at the faces of the Sentinels, those robots, they are modeled after the Olmec statues.
So to quote the great King Solomon, I'll say, I'm black, but I'm beautiful.
Watch out.
That's in the book of Proverbs, by the way. Y'all didn't think that was in the Bible. That's in the Bible.
Too pro-black, bro.
We thank y'all for rocking with us this week. We hope we didn't get too pro-black, but Miss Daniels, she pushed us to that point, man. I don't know. Sometimes I just kind of cultural ignorance kind of started rubbing me the wrong way these last couple of years, man. So, but we do appreciate everybody who rocked with us this time around. As always, no matter what we're talking about, politics, faith, race, whatever, we are going to keep God in the mix. So until the next time, this is AJ for Avery and Eve saying peace.
Peace.
Let's get started.